Yo. Nah. You're not ready for this one. Stefon Diggs just got exposed in the most public way possible. His own personal chef walked into that courtroom, raised her right hand, and blew the whole double life wide open in front of the entire world. And the part she dropped about Cardi B? Brew. That's the kind of betrayal that makes your stomach turn. Mr. Certified Pro Bowler really thought he could keep this buried forever, and he picked the worst possible courtroom to find out he was wrong. Before we start, this is Melanin Scope Media. Hit like, subscribe, don't miss what's coming. Stefon Diggs, the four-time Pro Bowl wideout, free agent, and former New England Patriot, is on trial in Dedham District Court, Massachusetts, for felony strangulation and misdemeanor assault and battery against his live-in private chef Jamila Miller Adams. The alleged incident, December 2nd, 2024, inside his own home, allegedly over unpaid wages. Diggs pleaded not guilty back in February 2025, and his team really thought spinning this as a money grab was gonna shut it down. Now buckle up, because what came out under oath flipped the entire narrative. Let's go straight to the courtroom transcript, because the words coming out of Mila Adams' mouth this week, wild. When the prosecutor asked her flat out how she'd describe her relationship with Diggs, she didn't dodge it. She said, and I quote, "I would say it's complicated. It started out as friends. We met, started out as friends, became sexual, and we would meet up, hang out." When I heard that on the live courtroom feed, I had to rewind it 3 times. Bro, this woman just told the jury, under oath, that she and a man whose girlfriend was Cardi B had been smashing on the low. That's not a slip. That's a confession. Then came the line that broke the internet. Adams testified about Art Basel in Miami, the trip she wasn't invited on. And she said, me and his girlfriend Cardi B had outfits planned. Bro said what? Coordinating fits with the woman whose man you allegedly sleeping with? Nah, that's the dumbest flex I've ever heard out of a witness chair. Stefon really had these 2 women planning matching looks, while he was the common denominator. That's not a love triangle. That's a love pyramid scheme. Then Adams described the moment everything turned violent. According to her testimony, he smacked me with an open hand. Before she said he wrapped his arm around her neck and choked her. She literally stood up in court and demonstrated the hold for the jury, visibly shaking. When I saw that clip making the rounds, I was like, nah, this is different. You don't fake shake on a witness stand for $2,000 of unpaid wages. But then the defense fired back hard. Diggs' attorney told the jury straight up, there was no strangulation. His team played actual video, of Mila Adams dancing and laughing in the days surrounding the alleged incident. When I saw that, I had to do a double take. Is the defense serious? Because dancing footage doesn't disprove a chokehold, but it does muddy the water in front of a jury. That's a slick move, I'll give him that. And then the receipts that started this whole investigation, the leaked text messages from the police report. One of the messages allegedly sent by Mila Adams reads, "There's a f***ing circus going on, I'm out of your life." When I read that for the first time, I knew. Y'all knew too. That doesn't read, "Hey boss, pay me my $2,000. That reads, "I'm done with you." Bro, you don't tell your employer you're out of their life. You hand in a 2-week notice. That line right there? That's where Diggs lost the plot. Now that we got the quotes, let's connect the dots. Here's where the timeline starts whispering. Adams testified that Diggs first slid into her DMs back in December 2022, 2 whole years before this alleged assault. 2 years. So the "she's just my chef" angle? That story doesn't survive once you understand the runway here. Now check the relationship overlap. Cardi B and Stefon went public in October 2024. The alleged assault happened December 2nd, 2024, roughly 2 months into their public courtship. That sexual relationship with Mila? It started long before Cardi was even in the picture, and per Adams' own testimony, it bled right into the Cardi era. Stefon really thought nobody would line these dates up? That's terrible operational security. Brew. Then there's the Art Basel piece. That trip? It happened right before December 2nd. Mila testified she was upset not because she wasn't invited, but because Diggs waited to tell her. That detail matters. That's not the reaction of an employee. That's the reaction of someone who thought she had a different kind of standing in his life. Any smart person would have handled that conversation weeks earlier. But Stefon waited until the night before and walked face first into a powder keg. And here's the nail. Adams testified that Diggs allegedly had another sexual relationship going at the same time with a woman named Lindsay Boland, and that Boland didn't like me, the fact that I was in the house. So we got a girlfriend, Cardi, a live-in chef is allegedly sleeping with Mila, and a third woman, Lindsay, also in the rotation. That's not a love life. That's an HR department waiting to file a class action. That's the move of someone who doesn't have real advisors in his ear. The post-trial timeline tells you everything too. Cardi B and Stefon Diggs split in February 2026, after 1 year together, well before this trial kicked off. So by the time Mila Adams hit that witness stand this week, Stefon was already battling on two fronts, a courtroom and a heartbreak. That's not coincidence. That's compound interest on bad decisions. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Now let me put on the detective hat, because there are pieces of this nobody is zooming in on properly. First, that one phrase in Mila's leaked text, out of your life. Forget the rest of the message. Just those 4 words. In employment speak, you say out of this role or off the project. Out of your life is exclusively the language of intimacy. That single phrase, those 4 words, is a linguistic fingerprint of a romantic exit, not a professional one. And opposition really didn't catch that before letting his team paint her as a disgruntled employee. That's embarrassing detective work from a high-paid legal squad. Now check this out. Nobody's talking about the order of words in Adams' courtroom answer. She said, started out as friends, became sexual. Notice she didn't say became professional. She didn't even mention the chef job in that sentence. The chef title was added in February 2025, months after the sexual relationship, per her own testimony. So the cooking gig was not the foundation of the relationship. The cooking gig was the cover. Stefon literally hired his side situation. That's a forensic detail that obliterates the defense's she's just my employee framing. Here's another piece. The defense played dancing videos to discredit the strangulation claim. But pay attention to a forensic principle. Trauma response is not linear. Survivors smile. Survivors dance. Survivors post selfies the next day. That's psychology 101. So the defense playing those clips actually reveals their strategy more than their evidence. They are betting on jurors who don't understand trauma. That's a desperate gamble dressed up as a smart move. And here's the loudest silent clue. Diggs' lawyer's framing. Nobody saw it, nobody heard it, no medical records, no photos. Notice what's missing from that defense list? They never said and nothing happened between them sexually. They never denied the affair. They denied the assault. That's a tell, brew. A real tell. If the relationship was strictly chef and boss, the first thing your legal team puts on the record is they had no personal relationship. They didn't. Because they couldn't. Because the texts already told on him. That's the problem with opposition. He doesn't read between his own lawyer's lines. One more, the financial settlement attempt. Diggs' team claims Adams' camp tried to negotiate a settlement before trial. They are using that as proof she's after a check. But check the forensic flip. Settlement talks happen in every civil adjacent case. The fact that those talks failed and she chose to go public, under oath, on camera, in front of cameras filming Cardi B's name, means a check wasn't enough. She wanted the record. That's not a money grab. That's a reputation reset. And Stefon's team weaponizing the settlement attempt actually proves her point. She could have stayed quiet for cash. She didn't. Now let's see how the media covered this. The framing war on this story is wild, and it tells you everything about whose narrative each outlet is protecting. ESPN played it straight neutral. They framed the day as contrasting accounts. Diggs says it never happened. Mila says it did. Jury decides. That's the corporate sports media spin. Protect the star athlete's marketability. Protect the league. Protect the brand deals. ESPN won't go forensic on Diggs because Diggs is still on a roster pipeline. The Sun and the Shadow League went the other direction. The Sun zoomed all the way in on Adams shaking on the witness stand, demonstrating the chokehold, full body language detail. The Shadow League led with there was no strangulation, putting the defense's own words in the headline as a question mark, not a statement. Same testimony, 2 completely different frames. Then NFL.com, the league's own outlet, went straight to free agent WR Stefon Diggs framing. Read that headline again. They led with his employment status, not the charges. That's not journalism. That's a rusticade. The NFL is treating this like a contract issue, not a felony. And here come the counter-narrative folks. Some Diggs supporters are saying this is all cap, that Mila is a scorned woman cooking up charges because the romance went south. They are pointing to the dancing videos and the out-of-your-life texts as proof she's emotional, not assaulted. But those are the same people who pretended the texts about coordinating outfits with Cardi didn't exist. You can't selectively believe half a text thread. Brew. If you still think Stefon has a clean story after the receipts dropped this week, you're not analyzing, you're rooting. The media trying to spin this full opposition. But the receipts, the texts, the testimony, the timeline overlap with the Cardi era. They don't lie. Different outlets are gonna keep frame fighting through this trial. But the courtroom transcript is the only document that survives. But here's what nobody is saying. Mainstream media is gonna run with two narratives this week. Narrative 1, rich athlete versus scorned employee. Narrative 2, another celebrity domestic violence case. Both narratives are wrong. Both narratives miss the real story. And here's the truth they won't tell you on ESPN or NFL Network. This isn't a Stefon Diggs story. This is a systemic pattern story about how high-profile athletes weaponize employment contracts as a discrete structure for romantic and sexual relationships, and it's been happening for decades. Think about the architecture of what allegedly went down here. Diggs allegedly meets Mila in the DMs in December 2022. They become friends, then sexual. 2+ years later, February 2025, he hires her as a live-in chef at $2,000 a week. That's not a hiring decision. That's a containment strategy. You convert the unofficial relationship into an official paycheck. Now she's bound by NDAs, employment law, and proximity. She's not a girlfriend the public can question. She's the chef. Stefon is playing chess with employment paperwork, while regular people thought he was just Cardi's man. He's playing chess while the public was watching checkers. And let me say this clearly, this isn't unique to Diggs. This is the playbook. Personal chef, personal trainer, personal assistant, creative director. These titles have been quiet covers for athlete and entertainer relationships since before y'all were born. The Mila situation just blew the architecture into public view because it ended in a felony charge and not an NDA. Stefon represents the old God playbook that the culture is finally exposing. Now connect this to the Cardi piece. Cardi B is one of the most plugged-in, savvy women in entertainment. Cardi has security teams. Cardi has lawyers. Cardi has a publicist who literally wakes up sniffing for threats. And yet for a year, Cardi had no idea, allegedly, that her boyfriend had a live-in sexual situation in the same residence. You'll know what that tells you? It tells you the chef cover system is that effective. The system was built to fool exactly someone like Cardi. Stefon didn't outsmart Cardi. He leveraged a structure that's been built to outsmart everyone's girlfriend for decades. That's the forbidden truth nobody wants to print. Here's where it gets darker. The unpaid wages framing? That's the PR shield. Because if the prosecution wins on a wage dispute, Diggs' team can spin it as a financial misunderstanding. But if the real dispute that night was about Mila finding out she wasn't going to Art Basel, while Mila and Cardi were planning matching outfits, then this isn't about money at all. This is about a man triple-booked across 3 women allegedly losing his composure when one of his arrangements found out about another arrangement. That's not a wage dispute. That's a containment failure. Stefon didn't melt down over $2,000. He allegedly melted down because the lie management got too heavy. And his lawyers really don't want that framing in front of a jury. And that's the real reason this trial is dangerous for him, not because of the criminal exposure. He can fight that. But because of the cultural exposure. Once this pattern goes public, every athlete using the personal chef or personal trainer cover gets a microscope on them. Every contract gets re-examined. Every employee living in the house gets questioned. Stefon isn't just defending himself. He's holding the line for an entire generation of men who've been using the same operational playbook. And that's why the league's media arm is so quiet on the affair angle and so loud on the free agent angle. Protect the model. Protect the system. Opposition really thought this was just gonna be about whether or not he choked his chef. Nah, Brew. This is about whether the entire structure of how powerful men hide relationships in plain sight survives a Massachusetts courtroom. That's the trial. That's what's on the table. And opposition is playing checkers while the culture is playing chess. And that's the truth they won't tell you. So what happens next? Here's what's most likely to happen over the next 30 to 60 days. This trial is gonna get messier before it gets cleaner. Mark my words, Mila Adams is gonna take that stand again, and more witnesses are gonna come forward. Whether it's Lindsay Boland, whether it's other staff inside the household, whether it's text threads we haven't seen yet, the receipts that surface in the next 2 weeks are gonna make this week look like the appetizer. When that wave hits, Stefon Diggs is gonna look desperate trying to keep the dancing video defense afloat. The strategy of she was happy, therefore she wasn't assaulted is gonna age like milk in July. And the silence Cardi B is gonna keep on this? That silence is gonna hurt Stefon more than any post she could ever make. Now if Stefon gets acquitted, and let's be real, the defense's no medical records, no photos, no witnesses angle is legally strong. He's still gonna lose in the court of public opinion. Free agency? Forget it for a beat. NFL teams are gonna ghost his agent through the next signing window. Owners don't want this headline next to their team logo. We saw what the league did to other players caught in domestic adjacent storms. Stefon doesn't stand a chance at the kind of contract he expected. A criminal acquittal saves his freedom. It does not save his market value. He's gonna get one mid-tier offer, 1-year prove-it deal, and that's it. Watch. Here's the long game. This trial, win or lose, is gonna become a case study. 5 years from now, when sports law professors talk about how to structure athlete employment contracts, they are gonna point to this case. When publicists train rookie athletes on how to not get caught up like this, Stefon's name is gonna come up. When future girlfriends of NFL players ask questions about who's living in the house, this case is the reason. That's a legacy stain that doesn't wash out. And on the relationship side, Cardi B is gonna come out of this stronger than ever. She always does. She's gonna pivot into music, into business, into whatever she touches next, and the public is gonna ride for her. Stefon, on the other hand, is watching the culture move on without him, and there's nothing he can do about it. This is gonna be the moment everyone remembers as when his off-field reputation flipped, and that flip is permanent. Whatever happens, one thing's clear, Stefon already lost. If you made it this far, you already know this is Melanin Scope Media, where we don't follow narratives, we break them. Hit like, subscribe, and stay locked in. Because what's coming next? Trust me, they don't want you to hear it.